to empower voters and defend democracy. Like John Lewis, we understand that a true democracy only works when every person has the right to participate. John Lewis's efforts to register Black voters in Mississippi, an event remembered as Bloody Sunday, raised awareness of racial injustice and contributed to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a landmark civil rights law that transformed American democracy and prevented discrimination against Black Americans and other voters of color in our voting laws. However, since the Supreme Court rolled back key provisions of the Voting Rights Act in 2013, voting has become more challenging, especially for women and communities of color. And Congress has repeatedly failed to fix the situation despite having the ability to do so. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act was first introduced in Congress in 2021 to restore and update the protections of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but it has failed to advance every single session. It was reintroduced this year on March 5th, ahead of the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. It is endorsed by more than 140 organizations across the nation, including the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the ACLU. That even though it was referred to a House committee on the day it was introduced, it has not moved since. However, as Julie talked to you about, the SAVE Act has moved, and the SAVE Act was advanced that will make it harder to vote for everybody. So one is not moving, one is moving. It moved out of the House and is currently in the Senate. That's a SAVE Act. Selena Stewart, the CEO of the League of Women Voters, said it best in her blog to League members on Independence Day. We are in a constitutional crisis. We've witnessed an administration that defies federal court orders, amplifies voter fraud disinformation while restricting ballot access, allows innocent people to be snatched off the streets in broad daylight without any due process, and uses government power to silence dissent. Courts have rolled back voting protections and civil rights while operating with no accountability to the public they serve. This is a methodical erosion of our democratic values and policies, and there has been little resistance on either side of the aisle in Congress. So what are we going to do about it? Can we as individuals still do something about this? And the answer is yes. We have to act, and there's plenty still to do. It's time for a revolution in how Americans think about civic engagement. For too long, we've treated democracy like a spectator sport, showing up every few years to vote, and then retreating to passive observation. We can draw inspiration from the suffragists who founded the league over a century ago. They understood that democracy isn't self-sustaining. It must be actively defended by each generation because threats emerge in each generation. They didn't win the right to vote by asking nicely. They organized, protested, demonstrated, and refused to cooperate or accept second-class citizenship. Today's threats demand equal commitment and, even more importantly, action. We're asking Americans to join us in showing up in the streets, actively participating in nonviolent civil resistance to change the course of our history at this moment, and holding our elected officials accountable to sustained advocacy at all levels, local, county, state, and federal. None of us have to do everything, but we must all do something. What to do. Contact your elected representatives and tell them to protect voting rights for all Americans. Tell them to advance the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, the Freedom to Vote Act, and the Native American Voting Rights Act. Tell your senators to vote no on the SAVE Act. Commit to saving our democracy. Attend town halls. Run for office. Dispel mis and disinformation. Show up at a demonstration or protest. Participate in economic boycotts. Register voters, make sure your registration is up to date. And in other words, do what John Lewis told us to do. Go out and cause some good trouble.